Welcome to Your Wedding Unlimited, a podcast for couples who want a wedding day that feels personal, authentic, and true to them. I'm Abby, UK wedding planner and owner of Elegance Unlimited, here to help you reinvent tradition and plan a wedding day that genuinely tells your love story. I cannot wait to get started, so let's get planning. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Wedding Unlimited podcast. My name is Abby, if you don't yet know me. Hi, welcome. I am a wedding planner, coordinator, and stylist here in the UK, and this is Your Wedding Unlimited, a podcast to inspire, to advise, to support, to guide, all of those things you through the wedding planning process, because it is daunting and overwhelming and sometimes a little bit anxiety inducing. As exciting as it is, there is a lot going on and it is a really high pressure, high emotional time. So my purpose of this podcast is to help you, support you, and just make you feel really good about the process. I don't want anyone to feel stressed and upset. So that's what this is for. Thank you so much for joining. If you are brand new, if you are coming back for another episode, then thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. We are going to dive straight into another fantastic episode today, if I do say so myself. But before we do, if you are not yet following or subscribed to the podcast, it would mean the absolute world if you just took 2 seconds to click that little button. It means the world. It helps with all the back end data stuff. And it just helps me to reach even more couples looking for support and guidance whilst they're planning their wedding. So that would mean everything to me. I'm going to stop rambling and we are going to get straight on into today's episode. So I haven't even told you in the intro there what we're going to be talking about today, but the title of today's episode is How to Plan a Wedding Whilst Working Full-Time. I thought this would be a good episode to do because I know as a wedding planner how much time it takes to plan a wedding. It's a lot of time. Okay. And life doesn't stop just because you are planning a wedding. You still have work to go to. And when I say whilst working full time, I'm including all the other things in this. Okay. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you have work to do. Maybe you run a second business yourself. Maybe you are a carer. Maybe you just want to live your life and socialize and see your friends and family. Maybe you, speaking from experience the last year or so, have a new puppy at home and it takes up a lot of time, more time than you thought it would, to train and do all the things. And suddenly you're like, oh, I just don't feel like I have the brain capacity or the energy or anything else to be sitting down and planning a wedding as much as I want to. Life carries on. Things get busy. Maybe you get sick. Maybe, life is too busy for a few months and you get behind on things. Whatever it might be, when you are planning a wedding, life goes on and that can be a lot. So I thought in today's episode, I would run you through my tips, my top tips for you that I would be suggesting to help support you planning a wedding whilst working full time, whilst living, whilst existing on this planet and just trying to get through the day. So when you are planning a wedding, the first thing I want to highlight here is that you're not just planning a wedding. Okay. It's not just, oh, you're just planning a wedding. That must be so nice. Oh, you're just planning a wedding. There's nothing to it. You're just planning a wedding. Wedding planning is a lot. It is labor, which is why I say that to do this alongside a job, caring for a family, keeping the home clean and tidy, looking after kids and animals and pets and families and your social life and exercising and all of those good things that you're trying to do at the same time, it is labor. It's an extra thing to add onto your plate. It is emotional labor. It is logistical labor and admin. It's decision fatigue. You are doing inbox management with all of your emails and your admin and trying to keep on top of everything. You are doing project management because you are trying to plan a really large scale event. Even if you're only having 20 to 30 to 40 people there, it's still a big event. It's something you've not done before. It's project management. You're taking on a whole new role and a whole new skill here. It is also relationship management, and not just with your partner, but with your friends, with your family and your guests that you're inviting, with your suppliers. There are so many relationships that you are nurturing and growing and developing and trying to keep healthy communication open and all of these things. So there is so much that goes into planning a wedding, okay? Aside from all of the fun, pretty, exciting stuff that is obviously there and obviously matters, planning a wedding is a lot. So if you are currently planning a wedding and you're like, I feel like I've just taken on a second job, I feel like this is a lot, you are not imagining things. That's exactly what it is. It is a full-time job. There is a reason that people hire people like me, wedding planners, or even to do partial planning, to support them throughout this process or to take that off their plate, because it is a lot. And sometimes it's not a case of, we can't do it ourselves, because for the most part, lots of people can plan a wedding themselves. The skill set is there, or it's something that you can adapt to or learn to, develop or grow, or all of those things. Sometimes it's a case of we just don't physically have the time to be doing the research and the admin and the logistics and all of that stuff. Like there's certain things we have time and capacity to do, but we want to keep that for the fun stuff, the creative stuff, the making those final decisions, the contacting all the important people with the fun stuff and making decisions. We don't want to be doing hours and hours of research and budget mapping and tracking and timeline scheduling and all of this stuff that you're like, this is just not the fun stuff, but it's so important that all of my time and energy is having to go towards that. So sometimes people are like, I actually just want to do the fun stuff, and I'm going to hire someone else to take off all of the other stuff that's boring for me for a start and that I don't have the capacity to do. So sometimes it really is a time issue. Now, I've never sat down and tracked the exact amount of hours it takes me to plan a wedding, primarily because every couple is so different. I've never taken on a couple that has needed the exact same thing from me ever. And some things take less time by nature. They're just quicker tasks. Some things take more time. Some things that you think are going to take a small amount of time actually turn into taking up a lot of time. And sometimes it's, back and forth. I think this will be a quick email, and it turns into a few weeks of back and forth trying to catch someone at the venue or another supplier at the right time to be able to have that conversation, because we just keep missing each other. And, there's more questions than you think might be involved, and sometimes things just take me longer. So for me personally, I've never fully been like, a wedding takes me this many hours to plan, but I know it's a lot of hours. And if you Google it, which I did before this episode, on average, how long does it take to plan a wedding? And it said between 200 and 500 hours on average, 200 and 500 hours to plan a wedding. Depending on obviously, the complexity of that wedding, the scope, how much stuff you are doing yourself, all of the details, all of that stuff is going to be different, okay? But that's a lot of hours. If you think at your full-time job, you're working a 40-hour week, it's a lot of weeks, unpaid, okay? You're just paying out to plan a wedding. That's usually how it goes. You are paying out a lot of money to plan something, and you're not getting paid to be doing all of that work and stuff. So it is a lot of work, and it's completely valid if you're sat there at the other end of this podcast and you've been thinking for the last few weeks or months, oh my God, this is so much work. It's taking me so much time. How on earth are we going to get through this and still have our sanity at the end? Completely normal. Okay. You're not planning a birthday party. It's not a birthday party. And one of the things that I think often needs a lot of clarification or reminding in the wedding industry is that you're not just planning a birthday party or a small gathering or a get together, even smaller weddings. Like, this is a wedding day. This is a high detailed, high pressure, emotionally charged event. It's a live event. It's not just, oh, we're having a few people over for my birthday. We're going to get some food in and, I'll put up a few bits of bunting and some lights and some candles and it'll be lovely. Okay. There is so much that goes into a wedding that I think people underestimate. And this is why this whole, I can't believe, when you say it's for a wedding and not a birthday party, that the prices get hiked up. People just are greedy and they want money. That's not the case at all. When you really look into how long it takes to liaise with suppliers, plan the logistics, manage that budget, do the research, spend hours and hours of back and forth communicating with people, making decisions, doing mood boards, planning out all of the logistics and the timings for the day. The amount of time I spend on a timeline and a schedule for the day to ensure that everything goes smoothly, that I have all of the information there ready for what needs to be in this area of the venue at this time. And is any of it moving later on, or can it be put away? When am I having time to do that? Who is supporting with that? Where are the guests going to be at this time? And what do they need? What are they eating and drinking? And what music is playing? And all of these things that mean something to the couple, because that's why we're making these decisions. It means a lot to them to be able to say, we're having this specific song played at this time. It's really important to us that this song plays whilst the guests are drinking X, Y, Z, and these specific flowers and decor and signs are in these specific places. It means something to the couple. It's important. So no, it's not just a birthday party where you've stuck some balloons up on the door and said, welcome, come in for some cake. It's so much more than that. And you'll know that if you are planning a wedding right now, if you're in this process, even the most low-key and chill, small, smaller side of weddings still involves a lot of planning and process. There's a lot that goes into it. So it is an extra thing to add onto your plate. And one of the things I really want to highlight here is that you are trying to plan essentially a production whilst trying to preserve the natural flow of the day, the intimacy, the emotional moments, and the personal meaning, all of these things that matter to you that are trying to be kept intact whilst managing a production. And I don't use that word lightly, because I don't like to push the idea that a wedding is a performance or a show or a production of any kind. But in terms of the logistics of the day, when you have multiple suppliers, you have guest management and logistics and budgets and timings and music and all of these things going on, that's not just getting a few people together in a room. It's in terms of the work that goes on behind the scenes for suppliers, that's a production. I want to clarify this, I don't consider you as a couple and the meaning and the love and all of the important moments for you throughout the day to be considered a production. That is just a beautiful result. And that's what we're trying to create with this production of behind the scenes stuff. Your wedding day is not a production, but the logistics that go into it, there is an element of that there. So I think that's important to highlight and just kind of distinct between the two. A wedding day is a big deal. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's a big freaking deal. And I think when you come into this process, you've got engaged, you are thinking, okay, we're going to start planning a wedding now. And it feels exciting. And you're like, here we go. It's going to be so much fun. And then when the decisions start coming in, when that admin and the tasks and to-do lists start building up, then you're suddenly like, oh, this actually feels like a lot now, and I don't know how to manage all of these things whilst preserving the excitement and the love and the meaning that is really, really important to me. And that's what I think is what I'm trying to highlight here. So let's talk about how we find the time to plan a wedding without it taking over things, without it becoming too much, without feeling like we are drowning. How do we find the time to plan a wedding? Now, again, let me say that many people do this successfully. Many people do this and it's another thing to add to the list, doesn't bother them, no big deal. We just carry on. It is what it is. We'll adjust and everything will be fine. But what I want to highlight here is that if you have to sacrifice anything important to you, it is not worth it. If you are feeling like you are sacrificing anything that is important in your day-to-day life, it is not worth it. I want to remind you of the 3 C's here, the 3 C's of wedding planning that I think are so important that if you lose one of them or one of them is missing or not quite fitting right, everything falls apart. Okay. So we have confidence, calm, and control. These are the 3 things I need you to be feeling throughout the wedding planning process. And if one of them goes missing, it's a problem. Okay. If you are not feeling confident, you cannot possibly feel calm and in control, because that's it. They intrinsically don't work together if you're missing that. Okay. If you're not feeling calm, how can you feel confident? How can you feel in control? And if you're not feeling in control, I don't know how anyone can not feel in control and still feel calm and confident. Okay. So these 3 C's of wedding planning, the 3 things that we need to make sure are in place and supporting us and doing the work for us and making sure that we feel good throughout this wedding planning process. I want you to keep bringing yourself back to those throughout this process as well. If you are planning whilst feeling overwhelmed, if you don't have the time to plan a wedding, if you're feeling like this is just not something that is realistically going to work long term, we can't do this for the next year to 2 years, feeling like I don't have the time to do all of this, one of those 3 C's, if not more, is going to start to slip away very, very quickly. And the whole process is going to become something that's not fun for you, something that you're not enjoying, something that doesn't feel good, that you don't want to sit down and do. And a lot of the time you'll then find yourself actually avoiding it completely anyway. And then you're like, now I'm 3-4 months behind in planning. I've not done anything. The day is creeping closer because we've booked the venue and all of the excitement at the start, and we're no further along and we're not actually getting anywhere and able to make those decisions and plan a wedding. So how do we manage to plan a wedding whilst working full time, whilst living, doing all of the things? I'm going to give you some of my top tips now. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I just wanted to share something with you really quickly before we carry on. If you are feeling a little bit stuck when it comes to wedding traditions and you want your wedding day to feel more like you, then this is for you. My free wedding traditions checklist helps you decide what really matters to you, what to keep the same, what to adjust, and what to completely scrap, so that you can plan a wedding day that feels personal and authentic to you. You'll find it linked in the show notes now, and I really hope it helps. The first thing you are going to do if you are trying to manage your time wedding planning wisely is you are going to dedicate specific time to wedding planning. You are not just going to be haphazardly throwing your time at planning a wedding. Oh, I've got a bit of time now, I'll do that. Oh, I've got a bit of time now, I'll do that. Oh yeah, I've got 10 minutes now, let me just do this and reply to some emails and do that. We're not doing that, okay? We are dedicating specific time slots. If it needs to change every week as to when that is, fine. But ideally, you will be saying every Monday evening, we are sitting down as a couple, ideally, or if it's just one of you and then you check in again later throughout the week, whatever, to do some wedding work, some wedding tasks, some wedding planning, that is when we're going to do it. Maybe it's a Monday evening and a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday morning. Once or twice throughout the week, we are sitting down to either work on things. So we may be researching, we may be working on our mood boards, working on some tasks that we have. Maybe that's crafting things if you're doing DIY. Maybe you have one email or two like shorter admin email sessions per week to check in on your emails regarding the wedding, get back to people with questions or answers to their questions, reach out to people for quotes, booking in consultations, whatever it might be. But you need to be dedicating time to do that. You need to be setting aside a time, treating it like a project, because like I said earlier, this is project management. When you're planning a wedding, it is project management. So you need to be saying, okay, how am I going to get this project done? I need time slots in the same way you would at work when you're saying, well, at this time on a Monday, we sit down and have a team meeting. At this time on a Tuesday, I sit down and I work through all of my things for the week, my admin, whatever. You need to be treating this like a project. And please don't panic and think that that's going to take all of the fun out of the process. It doesn't. It just helps you to feel organized, because when you feel organized, everything else falls into place. How can you not feel good? Okay. And the 3 C's, it's going to help you feel in control, calm, confidence, all of that good stuff. Keep bringing yourself back to that. Having this protected time to do stuff, to sit down and say, this is when I'm going to work on things as well, is such an important thing for your mind, so that your brain is not constantly taken up with weddings 24 hours a day. And any spare minute you've got, you're thinking, oh, I'll just do some research now, or I'll just send that email now, or an email's come through, I'll reply to it now. There is an element of, yes, you don't want to keep your suppliers waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. Yes, if you're trying to book people, please get back to your suppliers as quick as you can so that they can secure your date, so that you don't miss out. But what I don't want you to be doing is just spending every waking moment thinking about it. You need these protected time blocks throughout your day or throughout your week to be able to say, I'm going to sit down for half an hour and do this. I'm going to sit down for 45 minutes, for an hour, for 2 hours, whatever it might be, whatever you think you need to map out my tasks for the week for wedding planning. And then, I'm going to work through a few of them. We're not giving ourselves a list of 20 plus things that we need to be doing in a week. We're choosing 3 or 4 and we're working our way through those. If we have extra time at the end of the week, we can choose something else to do. But I'm not having you sit there with a list as long as your arm and think, well, I'll just see how much I can get done this week. That's not how we're doing things. Okay, so this is point number 2, really. I want you to work on one thing at a time. Focus on one thing. Yes, you can have 2 or 3 things on your to-do list. Maybe whilst you're working on this one thing, there's an email you need to reply to for someone else. Maybe whilst you're working on this one thing, maybe it's your photographer. You need to research and contact some photographers to find out some quotes and then book a photographer. That's what's next on your list. So then we break that down, because we're not just booking a photographer. We are researching photographers that we might like in the area. We maybe are mood boarding the kind of style of photography that we like. So we've got a visual representation there of the style that we like and the things we're looking for from a photographer. We are reaching out to 2 or 3 photographers that we think might fit our budget range if we've looked at their websites and brochures. And then we are booking in a consultation call with 2 or 3 of them. I wouldn't do more than 3, particularly at any given time. And then we're maybe getting some quotes through, and then we're reviewing those. And then we are choosing one and going ahead and booking. Okay. So this one thing, booking a photographer, has actually turned into 4 or 5 different tasks that you might not get done in 1 week. It might take you 2 or 3 to go through this process of deciding what you want from it, reaching out to a few of them, finding availability to book in a call and speak to them, and then finally going through to that booking process. That's how we break things down. And you think, okay, well, this week, I don't need to book a photographer this week. All I need to do is reach out to 3 or 4 for some information, and then we'll go from there. And alongside that, yes, you could be also coming up with some inspiration for your invitations, maybe. Thinking about your color scheme and your bridesmaids' dresses, yes. But I don't want you to have a dozen things on the go at one time. It's too much. But we're choosing a few things per week. I just need to tick this off the list this week. If I've done that, I'm successful. I've moved the needle forward. I'm further along than I was at the start of the week. And that's a bonus. Trying to do everything at once is only going to make you feel exhausted and stressed and tired and overwhelmed and honestly miserable. You won't enjoy it. Decision fatigue is real. When you are planning a wedding, there are so many decisions to make. From the big things like your venue and your dress and your catering and your guest list and your photographer, all the way down to what kind of ribbon do we want to put on the reserved seating signs, and what kind of garnish do we want on the cocktails, and the little things that you think about. What color lipstick am I going to wear on the day? Like, these are the little things, but they are also still decisions to make. And I don't want you to be overwhelmed and inundated with 100 different decisions all at once. Okay, so we are prioritizing. We are doing the things that need doing first. If that's booking suppliers and securing your date, then great. If it's something that can be held off for a week, maybe we're sending an email to say, really, really keen to get the decision on the food made. I've got some other things on my plate this week. Do you mind if I check back in with you next week to confirm that with you? You know, you don't need to be sorting out all of your music for the day right at the beginning of the process. You can do that later on. So you don't need to be stressing yourself thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much we need to do. Compartmentalize it, split it up into tasks. Think this month we just want to get these suppliers booked. We'll work our way through it and see how we get on. We are protecting our peace by not giving ourselves too much to worry about. Because, like I said, life still goes on. So whilst you are trying to reach out to the photographers and book in consultations and get information about quotes and decide what's going to be the best fit and ask all the questions you're supposed to ask and think of all the things, you might still have a parents' evening to go to on a Wednesday night. And then your mum's coming over on Friday, or you've got a girls' night planned, or you need to go to the doctors, or your cat or your dog needs taken to the vets unexpectedly. They've got jabs to do, or you've got the food shop to do, and you need to clean, and you need to have some time for yourself. Oh, and you haven't been on a run this week. So how are we going to fit all these things in? You cannot do everything, okay? Because something has to give. So again, we're giving ourselves these protected blocks of time to focus on a select few things so that these things don't run away from us and feel like it's too much. I completely know how when you are in that zone, when you're feeling like the passion and the excitement of planning a wedding, how it's so easy to sit there and be like, I just want to do everything. I'm excited. I could just keep going. Like I'm unstoppable. There's no part of me that's finding this stressful or boring. I'm just going to keep going. And that's great. But when you keep running on that fuel and you keep going and going and going, there might be a point where you hit a wall and you think, oh, I've done too much and I'm overwhelmed. So to keep the excitement, to keep the passion and the energy and the motivation, we protect that time, okay? And we stop when we've set a timer to stop and we say, I'm not going to do any more until my next session to sit down and work on wedding stuff. And that's going to keep you excited, keep you looking forward to coming back to it as well, because it's not taking over your life. One point that I will make here, again, I've talked about the average wedding taking 200 to 500 odd, whatever hours to plan. Even if it's 200 hours, that's a lot of hours. So what I want you to do, if you can, is give yourself enough time to plan. And I mean, try not to plan a wedding in 3 months or less, 6 months or less. Okay, there's a reason that the average wedding takes 12 to 18 months to plan, sometimes longer, because you need time. You need time to exist and live your life alongside planning a wedding. It takes time to make these decisions, to reach out to people, to DIY all the things you want to DIY. You know, maybe it's saving extra money that you need to do all of those things. To give yourself as little stress as possible, give yourself time. Give yourself the gift of time. If you can plan to have your wedding a year at least away, you have enough time to plan properly and with calm and with ease. One of my biggest tips here is to stay organized. And I know that sounds just like such a cliche throwaway tip, like stay organized. But I mean, stay organized, okay? I cannot tell you, even as a planner myself, there are times when I will like miss putting some information in like one specific place. Like I recommend you have one key document or key place, whether it's an app, a spreadsheet, a notebook or something, a binder, a physical thing, whatever it might be, with all of your wedding planning information, and keep everything in one place. And when something comes through on an email or a message or whatever it might be, you are putting that into this thing to keep it there with you, okay? Because even as a professional wedding planner myself, there are times when I might forget or just miss some information to put into all of this key documentation. And then something comes up where I need that information and I think, oh, I know I've got it somewhere. And I'm then having to go back through emails to find I can't remember when it was, what month was it, who did it come from, let me try and find it. And you're wasting time and adding stress by having to look for the same information twice. If you've had that information through, put it somewhere safe. Logistics for the day, timings that people are arriving, food and menu options, quotes, whatever it might be. Try and keep everything as organized as you can, and it will protect your calm. Okay. I cannot stress enough how important that is, because you end up doing things twice, 3 times. If you're not keeping things in the same place, just saying, oh, I know it's on an email somewhere. Let me just go find the email. Oh, I can't find it. Hang on. Oh, I've got a different one. Oh, is that the most recent and up-to-date information? Because I also can't tell you how many times that information changes, and you might say, here's the pricing for this, including XYZ, but you might adjust it a little bit. And so the venue or the caterers or a supplier sends you an updated quote with updated information on what it's going to cost. Update that information in your key documentation, because if you don't have it up to date, again, you'll be like, oh, well, this is the price, whatever. And then you'll be caught off guard with some extra costing later on, or you'll be like, oh, I forgot that this changed. And what else am I missing? And it just makes you feel a bit frazzled. Okay. And I don't want that for you. So try and keep things as organized as possible in one key document if you can. It's okay to have more than one document. I have more than one document as a planner. We have like a key planning tracker, and then there will be like the schedule and the timeline for the day, which is a separate document that I put together and I use for the day itself. There might be supplier forms or dietary requirement forms or separate things, but essentially they're all in one similar place. Okay. It's easy to find them. I have those in a folder where I can just grab those as I need, and I'm not having to worry about finding them in 100 different places and pulling all of that together from different things. We're keeping things as simple as we possibly can for our own sanity's sake, if anything else, but also from a practical time saving perspective. My next tip is to communicate with your partner. This is one of the things that I think you guys know is important. You know it's important to communicate with your partner, but if it goes, this can cause so much extra stress. And again, can also waste time as well. If you're not communicating with your partner that actually I've already found us some photographers to contact, and he thinks we haven't done that yet, so I'll help and I'll find some photographers to contact, and you've both done the same job twice, and now you have twice as much work to look through. That's unnecessary. So if you can separate that time, communicate with your partner. Who is doing what? Okay. Who is in charge of what? One of us is in charge of keeping track of all of the budget information and making sure that we're on track and that we're within our budget and we're not going over. So the other person just needs to make sure that every single time a purchase is made, that information is being put somewhere that both of you can see, that the other person can manage all of that. And then maybe you are saying, I'm going to be the one to reach out to all of the suppliers and all of those things. So if my partner has questions that we need to make sure we ask a specific supplier, we're putting that somewhere that both of us can see so that nothing gets missed. And I'm not asking things that he's already asked or that, we're missing. You are communicating because this is a project that you're working on together. And I think that's really important and not to be underestimated. Also, in the essence of saving time and being just savvy with your time, being protected with the time that you do have. If you do only have one time in a week that you two can both sit down together and talk about your wedding plans, is there a time separately in the week that each of you could sit down for half an hour to 45 minutes and get some stuff done? And then you can come together at the end of the week, say, whenever you have time, to then bring all of that information together. You're doing work separately, bringing it together, reconvening, realigning, reprioritizing all of those tasks, and then separate ways again to get some more work done, coming back together. So you're not just being like, oh, well, we don't have time to sit down together and talk, so we just won't do anything, and stalling and wasting time. We are being efficient with our time when the time is there to be had. And one more tip for you here as well is to be ruthless and prioritize. I've talked about prioritizing your time and being quite cautious of that as well. But I mean, in terms of the wedding day itself, prioritize. Okay. You don't need everything. You don't need the magician and the live painter and the live string quartet and multiple outfit changes and interactive guest food experiences and fire breathers and all of this stuff. You don't need everything. Prioritize, okay? Really, really easy to get carried away when it comes to planning a wedding because there's so much out there and it's so amazing and it's so exciting that of course you'd be like, yeah, we want to tattoos done on the day. Let's bring a tattoo artist in, but also let's bring in these live burlesque dancers to put on a show, and let's have the magician doing this, and let's do choreographed dance for this, and we'll ask all of our guests to do that, and let's do, there's so much stuff you could do. It's exciting and I get it, but what I want you to do is prioritize. What is important to us? What makes the most sense for us? What do we have time to do? Let's focus on our absolute need to do's, and then we can add on some extra things at the end if and when we have that time as a nice to have. But I don't want to get to the end of the planning process and think, oh my God, we haven't even booked in these really important things yet. We haven't even arranged these important things because we've been so focused on trying to get the fire breathers here that now actually there's going to be nowhere for people to sit because we haven't even sorted out the furniture for them to do it on. So let's not do that. Let's focus on those absolute need to haves and be ruthless with your priorities as well, because you can always add things on as an extra at the end when you have that time. But to give yourself too much to do at the beginning is going to be a lot on your system. So you need to be sitting down, pulling together a list of priorities, 3 or 4 things. Catering and food is really important to us. The music is really important to us. The guest experience is really important to us. And having an amazing photographer and videographer is really important to us. We're going to focus on those, getting those done as a priority, getting them done really, really well. And then everything else we can come to later on. Those are our priorities. We're not straying from that until we've ticked these things off the list. Those are the things I would be focusing on as a priority. Those are my tips for planning a wedding whilst working full time, living, having all of the busy stuff going on. And it is a lot. I completely get it. Now, One thing I would like to add here is that if you do feel like it's too much, if you do feel like this is actually just not working, we're not having a good time, don't know how we're going to get anything done, oh my God, this is ruining my life, you can outsource. And you can outsource strategically as well. So you might decide that you want a wedding planner and you're like, actually, we just want someone to do this for us. We just want to make the fun decisions and they can do the legwork and the research. Great. You might decide you want a wedding planner. You might not. That might not be within budget. It might not be something that you want to do. There are other options though, if you don't, that can support you in a really, really impactful way. So maybe that is partial planning if you don't want a full wedding planner. Maybe it is just the on-the-day coordinator to take over all the plans at the end so that you don't think, oh my gosh, we've put all this time, blood, sweat and tears into planning a wedding. The last thing I want to do is run the day as well whilst trying to get married and do all those things. So maybe it's the on-the-day coordinator to make sure that all of that stuff's going well. Maybe you are booking in planning power hours with a wedding planner. Lots of planners offer this. I offer this. It's not something that I advertise, but if anyone ever comes to me and says, could I just book a few hours with you? Absolutely. Let's do it. And I can support you in whatever way I can. Sometimes that's just providing advice on what I recommend they would do next. Sometimes it's helping them to step out of the chaos and the overwhelm and come back into feeling calm and organized and in control. Sometimes it leads to other things where I say, okay, this might be beneficial for you to do X, Y, Z. And they say, great, could you actually then help us with that? Could you quote us for that so you could support with our styling, so that you could help us pull it together a timeline so that you could do X, Y, Z? Sometimes it leads to that when you know exactly, now we've spoken to a wedding planner or someone that knows what they're doing, they can advise us on what we actually need and what's actually going to be the most beneficial to us. Sometimes you might be wanting to outsource just your budget support. Maybe you're saying, can you just help us keep track of our budget? Can you just help us? Like, it feels messy and we don't know how to allocate spending in the right places and it feels like a lot. Can you help us do that? Ask. Maybe it is supplier recommendations. Maybe you're saying, we just don't have time to do the research. We know we want a florist that does this, this, and this. We know we want a cake maker that makes cakes in this style and, is within this budget range and this, that, and the other. Can you find us 3 or 4 to choose from so that we can reach out and have those conversations, but we don't have to do that initial legwork of researching? Can you do that for us? Ask. Okay. A lot of people are going to say yes. Maybe it's admin support. Maybe you want someone to manage the emails and the logistics and just support you with feeling organized and all of those things. Reach out to a wedding planner or someone that maybe specifically offers those things and ask. What's the worst they're going to say? No, I don't offer it. No, I can't help. But a lot of the time, yes, I have packages on my website. Yes, I have packages that I offer to couples to support with wedding planning, full planning. I've got on the day coordination. I do my wedding styling. But if someone comes up to me and says, could you help with just this, this, and this? What would that cost me? I could do a bespoke quote and we could talk about how that might work. Most wedding planners will do that because we want to help and we understand that, yes, we have these packages, but they're not always right for everyone. So sometimes it's a case of just asking the question, what can you help with? And what would be the most beneficial to us? Now, remember, you can plan a wedding, work full time, protect your health, protect your sanity, protect your relationship, but you cannot do it all. You can't do it all perfectly all the time. You can't never feel stressed. You can't never feel overwhelmed. You can't do all of the things and juggle all of the plates all of the time. Something has to give at some point. That's okay. It's perfectly normal. What I want you to do is focus on those 3 C's that we talked about earlier on in the episode: confidence, calm, control. Check in with yourselves in your weekly Wedmin meeting. You and your partner sit down and make that a part of your Wedmin sessions. Can we 100% say that we are feeling confident, calm, and in control? Ask each other those questions. Talk about that. How are we feeling about those? And if we are not, then that's something that we need to work on maybe before we go and start doing other things to do with wedding planning. We both need to be feeling those things. Okay, so you can do a lot of things. We can juggle a lot of plates. We can do a lot of things in life. But what I don't want you to be doing is sacrificing your peace and your calm and your happiness for the sake of planning a wedding, because then the whole process becomes not fun. And by the time you get to the wedding day, you're like, geez, let's just get it done. I've had enough. It's too much for me. I'm not enjoying this. I've not had a fun time planning. I'm overwhelmed. I just want to go back to not having this to worry about 24/7. And I don't want that for you. I want you to enjoy the process and I want it to feel magical. Okay. So let's protect our peace. Let's protect our time and our sanity throughout the wedding planning process. And I hope that these tips have been helpful in this episode. I really, really do. If you have more questions, if you have more concerns, if you have any dilemmas or anything about planning a wedding and you're like, I am not doing so well, I'm feeling overwhelmed, don't know how to cope, please reach out to me. Please send me a DM or a message or an email. I do my best to get back to everyone. I've had quite a few recently, and every now and again I'm like, oh my gosh, this was sent 4 days ago and I've missed it. I will always get back to you. I'm always checking to make sure that I have responded to everyone and that I'm, helping you to feel good and calm. Sometimes it's just a case of people sharing something exciting about their wedding planning, and I'm all here for it. Please share. It's exciting. I want to hear. Sometimes people have a little question and they're like, what's the best way to do this? How do I do this? I've got a dilemma with this. Can you help? I'm so more than happy to help. And if there's anything that you think needs to be talked about in the podcast, that you think needs a whole episode and that you'd love me to go over, then please do let me know, because I have had plenty of episodes on this podcast that have been requested by you guys listening, and you're who it's for. You are the people that need it most. So I need to know what you guys need to hear from me. I hope this has been helpful. Really, really, truly do. I want you to have the most magical wedding planning experience ever. So I really, really hope that the tips in here have provided you with a little bit of calm and a little bit of confidence to plan your wedding with ease. I will be back next Wednesday. There is a new episode out every single Wednesday. I am so excited to come back next week, share some more tips with you, share some more advice. And until next time, happy planning. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Your Wedding Unlimited podcast. If you are planning a wedding that's personal, authentic, and free from tradition for tradition's sake, and you'd love some expert help along the way, you can find my inquiry form linked in the show notes below. Don't forget to follow the podcast for more honest wedding advice and inspiration, and I'll be back next week with another episode. Happy planning!